Welcome all to the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops, your one-stop shop for enjoying a cold beverage, listening to our ice-cold basketball takes, and getting filled in on everything NBA. We have an interesting episode today, some news and notes from around the league, a little COVID talk, a little Kyrie Irving talk, which we haven't had in a while, but I'm sure we've had just about enough of in the past, but some new stories there. Some interesting trade news with, of course, Ben Simmons on the radar as always in trade talks, and then a few other guys, and then we will end with some keeping up with J.R. Smith, some exciting J.R. Smith news coming from his early collegiate career. So yeah, nice little slate today, and me and Jake will be getting into it soon. Jake, how we feeling today? How we doing?
Good. I'm excited to break this all down. I mean, it's been a crazy week. Yesterday, bro, Shams just came with the heat with some of this Kyrie news yesterday. So I'm really excited to get into the Kyrie stuff. But yeah, where are we starting today, Dunny? Boy, we've got a lot to get into, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, we're gonna do some news here first, and basically that COVID's coming back in a little bit of a scary big way here. It seems like we're having some flashes of last season where at the moment it seems, almost every game, every night here, a player from, one team across the league, or you could be the Bulls where they have 10 players in health and safety protocols right now. It just seems like at least every team has one or two guys at the moment that are not able to play, practice, whatever, participate because of COVID-19 and the health and safety protocols. What do you think about this? Do you think we're running into, a situation of last year where, we're going to be in panic mode anytime soon? Or do you think the Bulls are kind of an exception and, we'll kind of just coast, but it'll probably be some bumps in the road like this along the way?
Yeah, so the Bulls, I think they're at the 10 guys who have been on the list, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys who came off, a couple guys who just got added on. The Nets tonight going into it, I have 5 guys announced on their COVID list, including Alarcus Aldridge and James Johnson there. There was somebody else. I can't remember who else, the other guys on there. So, yeah, I think, we were gonna deal with it. The leagues were all prepared to deal with it at some point, but I don't think any human being in the world was anticipating the amount of breakthrough cases that were going to happen, and just like the rate that they've kind of happened at. We're in a lot of places, we're back to get into different restrictions and other things like that. So yeah, I think the leagues have to be cautious. I mean, it sucks to see the Bulls postponing games and pushing back the start time Sunday night if they're still going to be able to play that game and whatnot. Especially, and then NFL wise, we're getting into playoff time and everything too, and more guys. Like we saw the Browns today putting 8 guys on their list, and they had the most guys put on the COVID list so far this year yesterday. So
Yeah.
It's everywhere, and it's everywhere in the world. So the leagues have just decided they're going to play through it. I think in life we've decided that, I mean, whatever decision you made or not, like we're regardless, like collectively going through and trying to keep doing as much as you can while being safe. So the league has great protocols. They've kept people safe and did a great job especially last year. I mean, we know how restrictive it was for everybody, but it helped. I mean, it did. There were still cases that obviously happened and everything, but these protocols have worked to help out and everything. And it's probably just better to be safe and get it with the NBA guys. Although I know it's going to be an adjustment for all those guys to try to get back into the swing of, testing and everything else that might come with it. But yeah, I would just hoping for the health and safety of everybody, and hopefully that these protocols and everything else maybe more intense protocols at home and everything. The league said they have 94% booster rate on their guys too. So we'll just see. I mean, keep an eye on it going forward as we get into the holidays. Hope for everybody's safety, but we want to see these games happening. I think that's the biggest thing, and keep these guys healthy and get them on the court.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned we're approaching this holiday season, and this holiday NBA Christmas Day schedule is something that's, important to the fans every year, but, I feel like it's a little extra this year. I mean, we have some fantastic matchups on Christmas Day. Klay Thompson set to return around the week of Christmas. We've heard that. We've been saying that so many times this season, but for good reason. Some huge excitement in Klay Thompson returning to basketball activities from like 2 years out now. And yeah, you mentioned we see the Chicago Bulls already have 2 games postponed for this week, tonight's matchup and then Thursdays as well. Do you see a pause from the NBA anytime soon, or do you think hopefully the Bulls are an exception and they take those 2 games off, hopefully at least get half of those 10 players back and can move forward this thing? What's the possibility you're seeing for a pause in this NBA season, if at all?
I mean, I think it's real. I think it's real for the NBA and the NHL to consider that, at least for some of these teams. But I think it'll be a team by team basis as much as
Yeah.
anything. I don't think it'll ever be like all 30 teams are going to be sitting on the sidelines for 2 weeks or something like that. I think it'll be more what they've done in the past last year, where certain teams would miss like a week or 2 weeks of games. I know the Sabres last year missed like 2.5 weeks of games at one point from an outbreak on their team. I think examples like that, I think is more the route they would take. But that's what I would anticipate, and definitely the enhanced protocols and everything. I'm sure they're going to be as vigilant as they can in practice and on court and everything before games. However, whatever that looks like, I'm sure that's what they're going to go with too.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I worry that we do see a league-wide pause. I'm hoping that's not the case, especially like I just mentioned with this holiday season coming up. Just for so many reasons, you hope it doesn't happen around this time of year, because that would mean cases increase. So that's just bad on a general standpoint. And then of course we miss out on this exciting time of the NBA season. But speaking of excitement, and a game that did not get postponed tonight, that is Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors taking on the Knicks in MSG tonight. Golden State 5-point favorite, over under 211.5, I believe you said. And Steph Curry is 2 3-pointers away from breaking Ray Allen's NBA record for regular season 3-pointers made. Lots of excitement here. I mean, maybe not the best matchup, but just the pure fact that Steph's going to be breaking yet another record, especially in MSG, it should be an exciting one.
That's what I don't know if he gamed it or not last night at all. Didn't just chuck up a million threes because he wanted to try to stretch it to MSG tonight. But no better place at all for the record for basketball history to be made but the Garden, at the expense of the New York Knicks, who are reeling right now in the Eastern Conference. Very unfortunate for them, for the Warriors coming in tonight. But Steph even mentioned it in the post game last night. He's like, I think we were forcing plays a lot. Like everybody's juiced. He's like, everybody's juiced up about this record and everything. And so you can tell, like, obviously all those guys on that team revere Steph. Like everybody from Draymond to all the rookies, like he's a god walking amongst them when he walks onto the court and everything. So it's kind of funny to hear, like, the whole team is just like, the energy is just different around the locker room and everything, because they're waiting for this moment to happen. And now it's going to happen. You would assume tonight. He's literally like, he hits his first one tonight, that ties the record. And then he hits one more and he will break it. So that could happen in the first 2 possessions with knowing Steph Curry. It's cool to see history broken. We've talked about Steph Curry's greatness at length, and will continue to do so throughout this year as the Warriors look to be the title favorites in the West, at least right now. So I'm excited to see how he follows it up. He's going to end up being like 1,000, 2,000, another 2,000 ahead of this record by the time it's all said. And this is going to be one of those crazy untouchable records that like Jordan and Wayne Gretzky have in sports. I think like Steph is going to blow this thing out of the water. He's not anywhere close to done yet, but it's a nice moment that he's going to get to have tonight at the Mecca.
Yeah, it's cool too. I was actually just reading right before we got on here that Ray Allen said that he's going to be in attendance tonight, and he remembers that when he passed Reggie Miller, that Kobe Bryant was in the gym for when he had his special night passing Reggie. And he said here on Instagram, all I ask is, can y'all save me a seat, please? Spike didn't return my calls. So apparently Spike Lee is ghosting Ray Allen, and he's just trying to get in the building to respectfully watch his record get broken.
Well, Spike's hurt, bro. Spike's hurt that it's happening tonight. He's definitely not happy about it.
Yeah.
Like he'll dap Curry up probably, whatever. But like you see Embiid's interview from Saturday after the game. He's like, no way we were letting that shit happen. This is my city. That's what Knicks fans want to be saying tonight, but he's 2 away. And it's happening on your floor tonight. So
it's
Spike's definitely not happy
tonight,
about
dude.
it.
Yeah. I also, if you're into that sort of thing and you buy into this hype and that it's probably not just going to be the 2 that breaks the record, but could be like a 9, 10 3-point night from Steph Curry, I don't think it would be the worst idea to take whatever the number is, the over on Steph Curry 3-pointers made tonight. Because it has one of those feels, doesn't it? Especially Ray Allen's in the building in front of Spike Lee at MSG. I don't know, man. He didn't get it last night. It kind of seems like all things are pointing to an explosion from Steph Curry, not just him setting the record here.
Let it ride on Steph. Side note, I'm pissed at the Warriors for not covering 3.5 last night, but that's neither here nor there.
That's tough.
With their 2-point win. Bro, 2 points, and they didn't get fouled at the end. They just let it. They got away from them on the inbound, and just Steph was running away with the ball as the time's running out. And I'm like, you couldn't send that dude the line. Neither here nor there. I'm sure there's going to be. I'm waiting to see where we're recording as this comes up. This game comes up in about an hour or so. For all these coverage out there, and the thing I want to see is all the warm up videos right now. Like Steph, I wonder like how many people are in the Garden early right now. I'm sure it's a good amount.
I'm sure.
Try to get a video of that up here at some point in this episode. But yeah, so it's going to be I'm not particularly interested in the whole game. Like I watch a lot of Warriors games just to see Steph, but I think even on a night of a back-to-back, they're going to walk over this Knicks team. But it's going to be cool to see Steph probably get this record pretty early, and I'm assuming they'll probably stop the game and have a nice little moment for him there. So really excited to see that. Any other notes on Steph you want to touch on before we move on?
No, yeah, just if you hear us talking about this and you already know the result to this game, it is because you're not listening live and you're listening to after this game already happened when we put it out. So congratulations to Steph if he already got it.
We should put it up. We should put it up on the YouTube. Be like, congratulations, Steph. That's what we're naming this.
Yeah. And if you're watching live, we'll see what happens tonight. Like you said, I think the Warriors should be able to handle business tonight. The Knicks, have been all over the place kind of this season. And now I believe they're out. They don't have Toppin because of health and safety. RJ Barrett and Quentin Grimes is also out for them, who was their leading scorer last game, which is kind of crazy. And they're lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. But again, shorthanded. Julius Randle has not been having the same type of regular season he had a season ago. I think Warriors should be able to get this thing done.
I'm with it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be responsible on that -5 and whatever Steph Curry things we think about earlier. All right, Shams dropped a bomb on us yesterday, a couple bombs, some big news that we're gonna get into both of it. So we're just sometimes I feel like this is not just our show either, so I don't feel bad. But NBA podcasts just turn into like breaking down Shams articles, and that's just how good he is at his job, because he just comes out with his huge Monday article and drops some pretty important notes for guys that we've been wondering about, guys we even thought that could potentially be trading for each other. But the biggest thing this week, Shams announced. I mean, he's kind of just announcing it for Kyrie, is that Kyrie Irving is leaning towards returning at some point this year. We didn't really get a timetable, but I think they've mentioned towards the end of December as the deadline for when you would have to have 2 shots of the vaccine as an NBA player. And so if he wanted to come back soon, obviously he would need to have had that first shot sometime soon. We don't know about his vaccination status. We know that he hasn't wanted to get vaccinated, but the only reason Shams would possibly be reporting that Kyrie Irving is doing this is because he talked to somebody close to Kyrie Irving or Kyrie Irving himself, I would assume. So Kyrie coming back, what were your first thoughts seeing the news about the potential return of Kyrie Irving to this Brooklyn Nets team, who right now, without him, is still first place in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah. So actually, my initial thought on this was the part that caught my eye was how, there's increasing enthusiasm between KD and Kyrie. And there was just almost like a list of things that they are apparently talking about more now than they were before. And like they're just talking as friends. Like I kind of just assumed that was still happening. Like I didn't think that they just cut each, like if Kyrie wasn't playing with the team, I didn't think that, he was just out of touch with them completely. But maybe that was the case. That was the biggest thing to me. I'm like, well, I thought Kyrie and KD were close friends. So why would this, level of communication halted? Yeah, maybe it slowed down a little bit, but I was a little surprised that, that even needs to be reported. I would assume that Kyrie was at least checking in, on KD and, seeing what he was seeing from not playing. But, whatever. Apparently those talks have increased, according to Shams and Woj. But, as far as how I see this from a basketball standpoint, I think this is one of those things where if you're a Nets fan, you're probably super excited, obviously. I think, at a base level, NBA fans should be excited because it's usually always better when Kyrie Irving's on the court. I mean, he's, just such an incredible talent, awesome to watch. But, as far as actual expectations for the team, I think this is a thing where you're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see how it works. That's great that KD and Kyrie between them have increased enthusiasm. That does not mean he has that with everyone else on the roster. That does not mean he has it with the coaching staff. That doesn't mean he has it with James Harden. I mean, we didn't hear his name involved in there at all, really. So it's a wait and see thing for me. Obviously, base level looks good, sounds good. You want Kyrie Irving, one of the best point guards in the league, on your team. Already in first place, like you mentioned. So on paper, this should be a great thing. But for me, it's a wait and see thing. Let's see. Does it implode? Like I have here, implode mode or go time. I don't think we're going to see a gray area. I don't think we're going to see a gray area. I think it's going to be Kyrie's back. He's one of the best players in the league. Or they implode because, his absence did too much damage to this team.
So I think the one answer I think I do have is now that we're talking about who gave Shams all these answers, and you said that it was only Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was definitely talking to Shams. Oh yeah, that's who it was. So
probably I think one of his burners.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, hey bro, I got info on KD. It's rock solid. And then he just texts him, and the number comes up as he typing it in, and it says Kevin Durant because he already has his number. It's like, bro, you really had to go through all this? Yeah, no. That's interesting though, because my next question I had was the Nets with Kyrie versus the field, and I feel like you're with the field then, because if you're question implode mode or go mode there, I'm still both. I don't know. I still think. I'm with you that I don't know what these guys are going to react to Kyrie like with his diva antics or everything, but it'll help. It's going to help. The guy that I thought was going to help on the court the most is of James Harden, because he's just not going to have to do as much. And I think him in that third role, like strictly basketball wise, if Kyrie kind of slots back in where he was last year and is near effective, it just makes them better just because he can kind of take his place in the hierarchy. But yeah, I don't know how these guys are going to react to, like, I don't know how I would react to him. Like, I'm trying to put my shoes in like a Bruce Brown or something, like as a role player on this team. And this dude, it's not even that he's just been sitting out. It's been a story about him sitting out the whole time, right?
Just completely
since training camp. And MIA, no communication really with the team. Like they basically told him to go away until he decides to come back. Obviously, he's putting these feelers out, and who knows how much of it is. I wonder how much of it is Kevin Durant kind of being like, we need this guy for the stretch run, and trying to, convince Kyrie of this too. It's a very interesting dynamic to think about how this team would respond to something like that, and how Steve Nash would be able to coach it up.
That's
question.
That name right there, Steve Nash, and then I have two players who I think this is going to affect the most. The players might surprise some people. The players are Patty Mills and Cam Thomas.
That's facts.
because they both have, maybe more so Patty Mills than Thomas, but they both have solidified roles in this offense right now. Just, well, on this team right now as a whole. I think Patty Mills, even if Kyrie comes back, that stays. Cam Thomas, that's going to be tough for him. He's already developed a very strong relationship with Kevin Durant and James Harden. He's had some huge, like scoring nights. We're talking like explosion status here. He was doing it in the preseason. He's had a few huge games in this regular season. We're seeing in open media Kevin Durant and Thomas like kind of bashing each other. It's all fun love, and I don't know. I feel like the Rook is getting some quality time with Harden and Durant. Kyrie comes back into the mix. He did not play for a lot of the games for the remainder of the season. And Patty Mills, who knows? I feel like Patty Mills and Kyrie haven't even played enough to see, if those players can get that chemistry going, if they'll coincide, who knows? So those two guys, just because, they're the same position as Kyrie, that's gonna mess with the rotation a little bit. And two guys who have played well for this Nets team so far. And then Steve Nash. I mean, he went into this season with a handful, and it was kind of a mess. And last season, he got a lot of heat and, a lot of the blame because it didn't work out. And they had, this amazing roster, and he kind of flopped with it. At least that's what people said. And now he kind of has it figured out at the beginning of this year, but all of a sudden, Kyrie Irving could be thrusted right back into the mix. So I think, Steve Nash is a guy to watch out for in this situation. And then just the other two prominent guards on the team. Point guards, anyway.
And Katie's been showing a lot of love to Cam Thomas lately too. And so that's a young guy who they obviously feel is going to be an important part to this future to this team and what's his development like and everything. Yeah, they're going to have a hands full if he comes back, but we'll have to wait and see. And if it's, oh man, dude, it changes. It's the ceiling of what it can be changes the complexion of like the seat. Like then we're on a roller coaster ride I don't know what the fucking term I'm looking for is. So just mind me, I'm mixing up all these different cliches that I'm trying to put into my head. But we're really looking at the Warriors on the West and the Nets on the East leading their conferences. And who doesn't want Kevin Durant versus Steph Curry and the Warriors in the NBA Finals? I mean, that would just be incredible. And those would be the two favorites clearing ahead. The Nets still first place in the East right now, even without Kyrie. So who knows? We'll see what happens. All right. So tomorrow is when newly signed free agents can all be traded for the first time. So it is the unofficial opening, basically, of trade season now that the league is ready to go. And obviously the biggest name on the market, and Shams, as we mentioned in that article, bringing him up, Ben Simmons, our guy, back in the news. And a lot of talk about him and the Sixers exploring new trade avenues for him. They said that they're looking at a lot of 3-team possibilities, trying to loop in other teams, including the Los Angeles Lakers, the New York Knicks, the team we were talking about earlier, both teams that could definitely use some help in some support right now as they move on. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe, were in that mix. I'm trying to get the article back up here to see the next couple of the other teams. But as the trade season opens up, I just wanted to pick your brain to see, like, it doesn't even have to be Ben Simmons, but if you want to touch on your favorite Ben Simmons team, like, we could do that too. But either Ben Simmons or any other trades that you're kind of looking for, or teams that need to make a move to solidify a position to kind of be a contender, just anything like that. Like, what is your thoughts as trades kind of open up coming up tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, even though it's been like exhausted to this point, I do think the Ben Simmons one is the most interesting because, as much as I think he can be overrated at times and, his offensive game isn't there really, especially like, we saw in big moments last year in the playoffs, it wasn't there. That doesn't mean he's not an unbelievable talent, because he is, and he's young. And he's one of the best defenders in the league. And that is the most nice things you'll hear me say about Ben Simmons in a row. So don't get used to it. But I guess it wasn't all that exciting before when it was the Sixers just demanding these super unrealistic trades, especially for me when it was Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and picks is what like they
Yeah,
thought they were getting from the Celtics. But if we're approaching this time and it kind of seems like Philly's getting frustrated and maybe they're willing to stop being so stubborn, and then you have teams like the Lakers and the Knicks that are showing interest, that's when I started to get interested because that's really cool. You want a good situation with kind of an already built roster for Ben Simmons to fall into.
for sure.
You don't just want him to go to a team and that team has to try to make this guy who apparently is dealing with some mental issues right now and is scarred from the playoffs last year. You don't really want him to fall on your team if he's going to be your main star and you're going to have to build around him. You have no idea where his head's at right now. But
Very
if
true.
he falls into a Lakers situation where he can play next to a LeBron and AD, or the New York Knicks where they have a good supporting cast, even though he could be that, superstar on that team and kind of run things, he has a support cast if he lands in a place like that. So those are the most interest I'm in. I also think a Minnesota, which we've been talking about for a while, would be really cool for Ben Simmons. But we've kind of discussed we don't really know what that trade would look like. D'Angelo Russell, I'm sure, isn't moving the needle enough for Philly, and I don't think you're giving up Edwards, and there's no reason to give up Cat to Philly, back to Philly, unless it's a 3-team trade. But I did want to pose this question because I think this is what interests me the most. I talked about the Los Angeles Lakers. We've kind of talked about their struggles quite a bit on this
Yeah.
podcast already this year. And a lot of it, or at least a lot of what people think it is Russell Westbrook. Do you think the Lakers would be willing to make a move where Westbrook's involved and he goes to Philly or elsewhere if it's a 3-team trade and Ben Simmons ends up in LA?
Oh man, yo, what kind of how? Oh man, I don't know how drunk would Daryl Morey have to be to do that trade. He'd have to have at least 4 tequila shots, at least 4, maybe 5, maybe 5.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Go ahead.
No, go. I don't. Oh my gosh, it would just be hilarious. I think it would be the most hilarious scenario if that's what ends up how the Ben Simmons thing happens. I think the Lakers would have to give up. They'd have to give up more. I think Westbrook could be somebody that works with Embiid, but the Lakers would have to get somebody else to throw something in there because I don't think Westbrook straight up.
No, it wouldn't be that
for
alone,
Simmons.
I don't think.
And that's what the Lakers thing just is like. Westbrook has to be the centerpiece of whatever the Lakers are offering for Simmons, right? Like he has to be the guy that's involved in it. But man, if that's what Daryl Morey and if he went through all this shit to get Russell Westbrook, it's just the funniest thing.
Yeah,
like that's just him being like, you know what?
I don't think Philly fans would ever forgive him for that.
Could you imagine, dude? They would burn. It would burn down. Twitter would burn down. That's why it would be. That's why it would be like Daryl just saying "fuck it" and just like getting hammered, sending the trade in, and being like, whatever. It would be. That's the best scenario for Simmons. Obviously, the other 2 teams in there, the Pacers, Kings, Lakers, Knicks, Timberwolves, Blazers, Cavs are the teams involved. I don't even want to touch on the Cavs. What were you just gonna say? That I just wanted to get in all those 8 teams.
Yeah, I don't. It's just between the stubbornness that we already know the Sixers have, showed on their willingness to trade Ben Simmons, and then just like the fact that we only went through one team. And granted, Westbrook's kind of a loaded situation, and the Lakers in general is a hard team to work out fake trades for. But the fact that it just seems so difficult to even like come up with like a fairy tale deal is just goes to show like how loaded and sticky and just like bad this situation is for the 76ers.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I feel like regardless of what the Sixers do, I think management and their fans are probably going to leave the deal feeling disappointed. One of those two camps, if
Yeah,
not both.
that's true.
Just because it's dude, it's just so hard. What do you think the Knicks would like? What would a package from the Knicks look like in your mind?
It would have to be Barrett at the center of it, I guess.
So you
And
think
he hasn't
you
looked
think
great
they
this
hold
year
on to
either.
Randall then, and then build around Randall and Simmons?
I guess.
Because I don't know how that would even.
Could you
work.
imagine Randall and Simmons together?
Yeah,
Oh my God, that's even grosser than Embiid and Simmons. Like that looks, especially with us. I mean, we cracked the Randall code by just looking at Basketball Reference a couple weeks ago, and like he's not scoring like he was. He's back to where he was basically 3 years ago, and that's not an elite player. And you put him with Simmons, who's not really an elite offensive player, you're just going to clog your shit. I don't know, man. I think the best scenario, to be honest, is the Kings. And it's just getting Ben. I don't think Simmons, I think Rich Paul is doing everything in his power to not get him traded to the Kings. And I think that's why the Kings are kind of wary of it, because I don't think he wants to remember he put out the California teams and didn't mention Sacramento. Nobody wants to go there. But the best basketball deal of all these teams, and you can see why the Pacers would want to be in here. But are the Sixers aren't going to be moved by like Sabonis or Turner. A LeVert and Turner package with Embiid there. It's just not going to work. I'm assuming the Blazers' interest is centered around CJ McCollum more than it is Damian Lillard, and that's where their holdup is. The Cavs still being interested, I think, is more them doing their due diligence. But I'm assuming that centers around a Sexton trade and maybe more of the pieces. But I don't see the Cavs. Like, I think for Cleveland,
I don't think it makes sense for Cleveland right now.
Garland, Mobley, and Allen are basically all untouchable at this point with what they've shown this year. And so you could be like, here, you could have hurt Colin Sexton and Chetty and Kevin Love to make the money work and a bunch of picks. And it
doesn't make sense. From the Cleveland side, I don't think it makes sense.
I bet you Daryl Morey's asking for Mobley, and they're just like laughing out and they're hanging up the phone immediately, because that's what I would do. So I think the Kings make the most sense. They're my favorite destination for what the Sixers could get back between. I don't know what they would like. Is it Hield and Fox? Is that what gets it done? Is Hield and Fox for Simmons? And that's basically what you would do.
I think if you're Philly, you have to accept that in a heartbeat.
But that's what I don't think the Kings are. I think the Kings are offering like Hield and Harrison Barnes and pieces and shit like that. Because Halliburton, I think, is the guy the Kings love. So I think they're ready to move either Fox or Hield, but don't want to move him in the same. They wouldn't want to move him in that deal just for Simmons. And then you're building around Simmons and Halliburton when you could have those guys. But Hield's on his way out. That's why this is like the timing for the Kings is kind of now to get a deal done. Like they should be aggressive now if they want to make this.
Do you think Buddy, Bagley, and a first would move the needle enough for the Sixers?
No, I don't think so. I think Daryl Morey's demanding Hield and one of the guards. I think he wants the shooter that he can replace Danny Green with, basically. Mitchell. Or that I forgot about Davion too. Even that. I don't know what that does for Maxey too. But
yeah, I know.
But Hield, you could play Hield, Maxey, and Mitchell or Fox and be with Embiid and Tobias Harris, and that's a deadly lineup. That's a
good
scary
lineup too.
And they have Matisse too. And Tybalt. Imagine Tybalt and Davion Mitchell, or Tybalt and De'Aaron Fox on the back end of it. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. I think the Kings make the most sense, but they just got to convince the Kings to give up the farm, I guess, to build around Simmons. And I'm telling you, Rich Paul is doing everything he can to keep Ben from Sacramento.
I think Minnesota would be the coolest, but I don't know if Philly
Russell's not doing it.
No, he's not. And I don't know, if they're going to just throw first with D'Lo and then that will just make Philly happy. I don't know. Because I don't think they're not giving up Anthony Edwards for Ben Simmons, dude.
Oh, God, no. Anthony Edwards is like a top 5 untouchable player in the league.
He's more untouchable than Cat.
He's Bill Simmons used to do, and I've thought about redoing this article for us in the summer because he doesn't write anymore, but he used to do like a trade value chart and like rank all the players 1 through 50 on like number one player, you wouldn't trade any player 1 for 1. And then you go down that list, like you would trade the second player, the only player above him would be who you would trade it for, and so on and so forth, whatever. And so it's basically, it's kind of like the best players in the league, but it's not, you take into account contract, age, like situation, everything else. So it kind of works out. Like Anthony Edwards is top 5 in that just on pure talent alone. Like he's the best contract in the league right now and one of the best assets just because he might be Michael Jordan like 2.0 and you have no idea yet. Like the kid's just fucking crazy. So I don't think the Timberwolves are touching him. I think Cat, you have those two together too. Like that's who you're building around. Simmons is trying to be the extra piece as the point guard. So it's got to be Russell. And like I don't even know who else is on the Timberwolves. It shows how much Timberwolves I'm paying attention to a night-to-night basis that they would trade. Yeah, like Pat Bev is not moving the needle. Like none of their role guys are moving the needle for anything beyond Russell. So it just depends how desperate Daryl wants to get, I guess. And he said he's ready to go 4 years. So I
know that's crazy.
We could be talking about Ben Simmons for years.
Yeah, I mean, level for excitement here. I think if you are someone who's just been dying to see a interesting Ben Simmons trade, and Philly fans, I mean, the fact that more teams are showing interest and the talks have increased again. I'm sure Philly fans just are like, because the Sixers aren't playing that poorly this season either. Like it's almost, I honestly feel for Sixers fans. I really do a little bit in the sense that, this move could just be done if, these small existing variables around the situation could just go away, or if Morey would just stop being so stubborn, because you have, a superstar talent that you could use to bring in future pieces or another superstar talent right now and move the needle for this team. But it just, level of excitement just as far as the talks increasing, but also, frustration just starts to increase again when all these talks continue to happen without a deal being done. So, I guess just keep an eye out on Simmons. I'm sure everyone has been anyway. But another guy, in the last couple of days who we've seen grow some interest is Jeremiah Grant of the Detroit Pistons. And he really came into his own last season and started to get a lot of traction. But I mean, the Pistons are going nowhere fast. Grant just seems to be wasted talent on their roster right now, clearly in full rebuild mode, and he's like a little bit on the outside of that. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this much, but what do you have any potential landing spots for Grant, or a place maybe you'd like to see him go?
Well, the Lakers are the first team that pop into your head again, right? Like as just a team that needs something I don't know what they would offer the Pistons either, but he would be very helpful in that kind of wing spot that they've missing all year there. I think the Clippers, the other LA team, would be a great spot as somebody who can kind of fill in for what Kawhi has been, and the Clippers have looked good all year too. Grant he doesn't need to be the number one option. I think he can score like a number one option, but you don't really want him to be the number one option like on one of your winning teams. So I'm trying to think of like teams around the margins that could go for him and would be able to use somebody like that. Like I think the Knicks should be calling about him too, with some of their guards and everything, and the small lineups you could play with Grant and Randall as your bigs. I mean, Mitchell Robinson hasn't been good this year. You saw his Instagram post the other day where he like impacted the game and it was like plus 10 or something. He posted with something like, bro, you can't be stretching down to that. The Bulls, maybe like the Bulls probably don't want to mess with whatever they've got going on. They don't really have a lot of pieces to move, but without Patrick Williams there,
I was going to say they anticipate him back. I think if, it's looking like they're going to make the playoffs, I don't think he would be out for the entire playoffs. So
yeah. Dallas, and maybe Dallas too, like somewhere like that where he could play alongside Porzingis. Those like fringe teams that have some room to add a piece should be calling in and offering as many first round picks to the Pistons to try to get it done. Because the Pistons are going nowhere, and they're 4-22 right now, last place in the East. Jeremy Grant he signed up to get his contract. He got his money. He's got about $20 million a year. That's a decent sized contract, but it's, I mean, pretty good as a mid-level guy. It's not a max deal. I'm sure there's teams that could fit him under there and get him in there. So,
yeah, I don't know. The first team I thought of when I saw this was the Charlotte Hornets, but I don't know what that looks like in return to Detroit. And you also really never, know what a team like this is looking for, because we mentioned there's not a lot on Detroit that's jumping off the page. But other than Cade Cunningham, like, I'm sure you're excited about that, but like, you shouldn't really be too excited about his play to start his rookie season. I mean, it's nothing crazy right now. But Charlotte's just been one of those teams the last few seasons for me that if they had, a stronger interior presence, or just, a big man with a little more dynamic game. And I know Grant isn't, the biggest of big guys. He's more of a stretch four, but someone who I think would be a good fit for this team. I also think the Clippers wouldn't be a bad landing spot for a guy like Grant. Same thing I talked about a couple weeks ago with Miles Turner possibly going to the Clippers. I thought that was a good spot for him for the same reason. Just, a little toughness at the 4 spot, can stretch the floor, can play defense, athletic. I think he would mesh with that core of PG and Reggie Jackson right now. So yeah, I mean, that's where I would like to see a guy like Grant go, but just another name to look out for. And the last guy in this section that I saw was, allegedly the Hawks are willing to give away a first rounder, or receive a first rounder and give away Cam Reddish. Just wanted to know what you thought about that. I think the world of Cam Reddish. I think he's a really good player. I'm not sure too many teams mid-season would be willing to give a first for him. I want to get your thoughts on that.
No, I don't. There's no way they're getting a first rounder for him. And I understand, because they invested a first rounder, so they're trying to get something back for him. And there's just not room for him. I mean, Herter's awesome. Kevin Herter, I don't think they expected to outplay Cam Reddish with the way that they drafted them and everything. I didn't either. I was really high on Cam Reddish coming in. No shot they get a first round.
I think he's really good and a really
anybody
good
in the league
player.
can use him. That's the thing, though, is they can sell it to especially any contender. Like, who's saying no to Cam Reddish, a guy that can score 25 off the bench for you some games and doesn't play bad. Like, he's not a great defender, but he's still a decent defender. And he's
at the very least, he comes in and shoots the 3 at a good clip.
Yeah, and everybody wants that. Everybody wants to shoot 3 and D wings, or just 3 wings. So I think he'll get a spot somewhere. I'm looking more like that would be a great Knicks spot, because their shooting has been atrocious all year. Honestly, I would love the Cavs to try to get in on that, because I hate Cedi Osman. I still don't know how this dude is on the roster. He always
has a big game against themselves.
Yeah, he does. He balls out sometimes. Like, I understand. I know why he's been on the team for so long, but it's just wild that, like, he has made it. He has just endured. Like, he was LeBron's whipping boy towards the end. And then this team was so bad for a couple years, and Cedi was he was the guy. And it was like, this is horrible. And now they're like playing decent, and he still has just like great big role on this team. So if there's anybody that can come in to take that out, that's who should do it. I don't want it to be Ben Simmons. I would much rather have it just be Cam Reddish for like 2 second-round picks and somebody else. And Taco, they can have Taco. He can go to Atlanta. He'd like Atlanta.
That'd actually be kind of
thrive.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like he would. All right. So, anything else trade talks wise? Anything specific you're looking out for? I know I kind of touched on a few teams that I would like to see Grant go to. You got anything else here?
No. I want LeBron to get traded to the Cavs. That's the only other trade I'm looking out for. So we'll see what happens there.
Cleveland.
One more time.
Yeah,
one more time around the sun.
I have no really horse in this race at all, but I think it would be cool if we see not a trade, because I don't think that's very likely. Obviously, I don't think you do either. But I think LeBron going back to Cleveland at some point.
No, he gets bought out this year and then signs with the Cavs. That's more much more likely.
All right,
after Russ gets traded for Ben Simmons.
Yes, that is the least likely, but what the league doesn't know that they need the most right now. Last thing here, keeping up with JR, We took a couple
Yes.
weeks off of this, but as you guys know, J.R. Smith playing golf in college now, just wrapped up his first semester, and I saw some back and forth on this. So did he get a 4.0 or a 3.9? And he's thriving for a 4.0. I saw some conflicting things on Twitter.
I thought he said that he got a 4.0 on Twitter. I thought that's what I saw was his tweet saying 4.0, but maybe he didn't. I don't know.
I think I tried going through right before we got on here, and the only thing definitive that I saw that he said was a 3.9 and that he was shooting for a 4.0, or maybe he did. But I mean, regardless, unbelievable for for a dude who is, starting
4.0. No, grades are in 4.0 with a green check emoji, hands emoji,
right,
smile. Go. I'm going fucking nuts, but he didn't wrote fucking. He put a bunch of things in there.
Well, shame on me for trying to take that away from JR.
He is locked in.
He secured the 4.0. I mean, this is super impressive for someone who already, basically did their career and they could have just stopped. I mean, he had, he worked and his occupation was the NBA. He did it for a long time. He won a championship shirtless. He drank Henny on the championship boats, and then to start, essentially start over after you retire from the NBA, you go to school, in your late 30s, and to get a 4.0 in your first semester, I mean that's pretty incredible. I think, clap it up for JR.
Good job, JR. I didn't have a 4.0 ever.
Never.
He's smarter than me. I was never even close to a 4.0.
Yeah, my highest I think was a 3.8. So.
JR
accomplishing big things here, and it's awesome. It's really cool to see, especially because and we've seen him touch on this a couple times where people was, even when he was posting nonstop about college when he first got there, I feel like people were still bringing up, and he was saying people would see him at school and they would call him the Henny guy or tell him to take his shirt off, like. He's trying to escape that part of him and, not forget about it entirely. But I think he's trying to show, like, look, I can be more than, the basketball player who took his shirt off after we won the championship.
Very true.
This guy who is turned into a meme every other week because of, whether it's something he say or a play he made in the NBA Finals or whatever. But
well, he deserved that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That one has to stay.
that one that everyone knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, maybe he did deserve that one. But it's awesome for JR. Happy we could get another segment here going. Thanks. And hopefully even bigger things from JR next semester. He even got a shout out from Scott Van Pelt on Twitter, which I thought was cool.
Damn.
Everyone congratulating JR.
That's great. It's great to end the podcast on a high note. Good job, JR. Yeah. And good job to all you students out there. Hope you all got 4.0s, good grades this semester. We wrap up.
Yes.
Spread the good vibes everywhere. All right. That'll do it today for Happy Hour Hoops. Follow us below at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Subscribe to Happy Hour Hoops on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. For Donovan Holden, this is Jake Micah. Go watch Steph Curry make history, or just go watch the YouTube videos right now if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, because it was probably sick. And the videos, or whatever stoppage they do, he's going to dap up Reggie Miller and stuff. I can't wait to see it.